yes, yes, yes.
This presentation has like 58 slides, so I'm probably going to zoom through some of these. Does this thing have volume too? It works, right? I hope so. All right, so I'm not gonna, if I come across something that you want me to elaborate on, I forgot to bring my 17A, which is the criminal book, so if you have questions about like actual criminal stuff when it comes to some of the topics we're gonna be talking about, by all means, ask me. I can look it up on my phone probably in 3 seconds. This stuff, I would say the big thing, if you write down an email address, I can email you. I can always forward you some resources at the end of this, because I know it's a lot. But this company right here is super good. If you want to have your kid just watch a presentation, they have a K through 5, they have a 5 through 8, they have a high school one. It's called netsmarts.com. Anybody can download these. I literally just went on there and downloaded this today. This is the parent presentation. They have really good content, and it's age specific to whatever age kid you have. And it's great content. They talk about all the things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the slides that they have here. I'm gonna try not to bore you to death as far as like spending too much time, but I'm gonna fly through some of them. That's why I encourage you, if you have questions. I'm gonna talk to, we're gonna put this out. We did a 4-person high school panel with 4 high school kids ranging from a senior to a freshman. I think she's a freshman. Emily Bruce. And in that, we talked about a wide range of things that I thought was really, really good. Kind of eye-opening for me too, personally, to kind of see their perspective on stuff. And I'm going to be referencing that a couple of times because I learned some stuff in that. And Eustaquio was there with me, and so was Ms. Dumont. So we learned, I know I learned a lot. So I'll reference it, and we're going to be posting it, that whole video. I think we're going to be posting it before too long. I'm not 100% sure. We've done a little clip. You guys seen the clip yet on Berwick PD's Facebook? We did a little clip of it. So Eustaquio did a great job with it. So I'm just going to get into the presentation because I don't want to, I know it's a Wednesday night and I don't want to waste your time. What are our kids doing online is kind of the whole point of what we're here today to do, is to talk about some of the things that kids are doing online, some of the things that I'm seeing, things that we can do to prevent or help with that kind of stuff. I'll be honest with you, I have a 10-year-old girl that I'm currently in a battle with right now as far as certain things. When it comes to online, like cell phones and all that stuff, should I give them a cell phone? Which this panel, that 4 high school panel, was actually really good about advice when it comes to when to get a cell phone to your kids, stuff like that. So we're going to cover that, but that's kind of like what we're talking about. Things they can do online. You got video games, you got the computer, you got social media. This is a webcam, which are kind of obsolete these days with cell phones and stuff. You got a cell phone. These are all different ways that kids can get online. They all can get online various different ways. And they're actively online. Every kid that I talk to that's in the junior high or in high school level, all of them have some form of social media. There's not a single one that really doesn't. Most of them do. And if they're telling you they don't, they probably are not being 100% truthful with you. Technology, I don't know what they're talking about. Technology can't catch everything. I assume they're talking about you using a technology app like a Net Nanny or something like that to monitor your kid. It's not going to catch everything. And it's true. I think one thing I learned from that panel was the best thing to do as far as spearheading this is having a very open dialogue with your child. And not like, I find myself with this, my own kid doing this, is that I tend to be like, what are you doing? Instead of, hey, okay, what are you doing? Talk to me. Because I don't know if you guys experience, but the first thing I get when I walk in and she thinks she's watching something she's not supposed to, she puts it down. I'm like, what were you doing? Nothing. I'm like, what were you watching? Nothing, Dad. And then I start to get a little elevated. I'm like, all right, what were you looking at? And usually it's something innocent. And then she's like, oh, I was watching some pop video of a girl dancing. I'm like, okay, why can't you just tell me that? But I think open dialogue is going to be your best friend with this. Being honest with your kids, what your expectations are. But this is a little story from this kiddo talking about how he engages his mom. Is that going through?
It's for parents. It's a huge thing to have the ability to just listen and have an open dialogue, because at the end of the day, children don't have anybody to ask about how life works. They're just thrown into this crazy world and they have no idea how to interact with it and interpret it. And they need somebody like a parent, whether it's their parent or somebody else's, to help them learn that and understand that. And if you're not providing that to your kid, they're gonna have some problems online, right? That's just the name of the game.
So again, he's just talking about, he has a very close relationship, obviously, with his mom, and he can talk about stuff with her. Online risks, again, it's funny how some of this stuff kind of goes through cycles. Like, a lot of times I'll be dealing with like a lot of cyberbullying, and other times I'll be dealing like with online enticement, online privacy, sextortion is another thing we're going to get into, and sexting is also another very important thing. I'll get into what they are if you don't know what they are. And then inappropriate content, and that could be anything from, you know, the adult websites to stuff like that. These are the type of things that are risky for, and open up your kind of Pandora's box when it comes to online behavior. So these are some things we're going to be talking about. Every age group is at risk at one thing or another. So it's important to talk to your kids about this stuff. Etiquette when they're online, looking at inappropriate content. And again, this is like common sense stuff, but it's very, you'd be surprised how many parents are not willing to have that conversation with their kid. And like, oh, my kid goes into the room and plays on the iPad, and I assume she's not doing anything bad if I don't hear about it. That's not, and most of you here are here because you're the proactive parent that wants to know. So I think just being open and honest with your kid. No, this is another one. I've talked to so many parents like, I don't know my kid's password. Yeah, I have my kid's password for everything so that I can then look into it. And then you tell them, don't share your password. That's another thing that middle school kids do. And be aware too that as a kid, a lot of times if you sign into your friend's account, the computer will ask you, do you want to remember this account? And if they remember yes, now that person has got access. And that's been a problem before where I've had people posing as somebody else. So just be aware of that. Yeah, we're going to go through cyberbullying and all that stuff in a little later, but
Zion, what are you doing?
this is little kids content about,
Hi, Webster. Hey, what's wrong?
you know, we'll just skip that one. You guys are parents, so I'm sure you don't want to watch that. That's some of the, you saw that's a cartoon, that's what NetSmarts has. They have stuff like that. That's very appropriate for a K through, 5? Most teenage kids aren't going to want to watch something with a little cartoon, but in that cartoon he talks about how his friends dared him to take a picture in front of the camera, and that he thought he was just doing it quickly, and then somebody took a screenshot and then started using it as a way to exploit him, which is really big right now. That issue, which we're going to get into, is sexting, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but that is a big issue right now. So again, start conversations, build a strong relationship. And again, this is what I learned most. This is what I took away at the very most from those 4 high school kids, is they all talked about how their parents were very open with them. And they felt like they could go to their parent if something happened. Every one of them. And they harped on, some of them, their parents were a little more strict, and then some of them, they weren't so much. But all of them felt like they could talk to their parents about something going on. But just be aware of this, their level of thinking, oh, I think that's bad, compared to our level of thinking, yeah, that's bad. I was kind of taken aback by the fact that some of the things that they thought were just run-of-the-mill normal stuff, I was like, seriously? Okay. In my mind, I was thinking that, and they're like, yeah, it's not that big deal. Okay. So just be aware of that, their level. So again, if you lay it out for them, this is the expectation, this is what I'm looking for, and just be honest with them. I think you're going to have really good result. And I'm trying to do that even with my own kid. Just be honest with her about my expectations of her when she's on a device. And again, all that is to develop trust. And just remember, the big thing when it comes to developing trust, when they do come to you, you have to do your best to really receive it and not go through the roof, which I have been there many times. So it's tough. It is tough. I mean, I've been there. If you can learn, you don't want them to feel like if they come to you, they're going to get yelled at. That's the problem. That creates them going to other people. And sometimes they don't get the best advice from that. So again, that's where the comfort, be comfortable talking to your kids about that. Critical thinking skills, support child's development residency. I don't want to just read the slides, but I think you guys understand that what it takes to build a good relationship with your kiddos. And you're here, so you guys are the parents that care. Not saying the ones that don't show up well, These are some of the inappropriate content that they run into online. Again, the adult websites, excessive violence, which seems to be kind of the norm these days. I would definitely pay attention to the content that they list on like games and stuff. You know, do you guys understand the content scaling? It's almost like rated R or something like that for certain type of games, because some are really violent. And so it's important to know that stuff. So if your kid says, "Hey, can I get this new game?" Just be aware of the rating that they're giving that game for the age group that you're potentially throwing them into. And then what also comes online that a lot of people don't realize is that they have headsets they can talk to people online. And that opens up another area of not only harassment, but adults. They don't really monitor the people that are in these websites or on these gaming chats. I have an Xbox, so I've played before online, and I know how people can be. You can report them, there is ways to report them, but it's hard to really monitor that. So if you're a parent, you're not hearing what the kid's hearing through the headset. And they could be, you know, there's some pretty mean people online. So just be aware of that. Maybe you could have them play a game, but turn off the chat option on those games so they can't talk to people or can't interact with people on a headset. So just something to think about. And if you were to take the headset, if I take the headset out of the controller, it comes to the TV. So you can then hear what's being said. So that might be an option for you as well. Again, all that stuff happens, hate speech, risky illegal behaviors. We'll get into more of the illegal. Just be the trusted adult, because if they can't trust you, they're gonna go to somebody, and it's usually not gonna be, it's gonna be their peer. And you know as well as I do that the peers at this age group don't always give the best advice when it comes to how to deal with stuff. So that's, again, don't frighten them, listen to them, you know, just be a supportive parent. When they come to you with something like that, they're usually at the point where they're worried or scared about what it is that they've done. This is another big thing. I mean, I try to really speak to kids at the middle school level about this. This is a tough thing that kids have a very hard time just like disengaging from something online. If they get sucked into some type of chat or group where there's kids going back and forth, they almost feel the need to always respond, and it always snowballs into bigger issues. So if you can really instill upon your child just to be aware of what's being said in the chat and be able to pull out of it, because again, these kids are living, they're very much emotion driven. They're living in their frontal lobe, and they're really not reasoning like we do and thinking, oh man, this isn't going to go anywhere. I'm never going to win this argument. They don't think in those terms. They're just thinking, oh, this is funny. I'm laughing at what's going on here. And then next thing you know, it gets turned on them. You know, so just turning the screen off, back out of something, you know, telling an adult. These are all things that you can tell them. Just honest with them. Come forward and tell me if something's going on. This is another reporting system that you can use if you come across like some type of cyberbullying, or maybe you think an adult is talking to your kid online inappropriately or something like that. This is another resource, Cyber Tip Line. And there's also another one called ICAC, which stands for Internet Crimes Against Children. That is another resource. The best thing I can tell you too is if you end up getting into something where it's on an app like a TikTok or a Snapchat, you can contact the app directly and notify them about the account that's doing it. A lot of times these kids will change accounts and stuff like that constantly, be aware of that, but that is a step you can do to stay ahead of it. And again, if you end up getting something, or your kid comes to you with something, I wouldn't delete it right off unless it's something, if you think it's something criminal, like they're threatening your kid, or you know, kids mentioning, say a kid in the chat all of a sudden starts mentioning about doing harm to another student at school. It goes a long way for me personally as law enforcement to actually see the chat and see what maybe led up to the chat, you know, up to the kid saying that, you know, who's involved in it. And a lot of times the parents are just worried, they're like, oh, just delete it. Don't delete it, because I really sometimes need that. If you can screenshot it, that's usually the best course of action when it comes to dealing with it on my end. And then also school admin is gonna wanna see it too, because if not, you're usually just taking another kid's word for it. And you know how that goes sometimes. So if you get evidence of something, like your kid comes to you and has got the evidence, I would discourage you from deleting it right off, especially if it's something that you feel could be criminal in nature. Keep it, and then give it to, notify police department. You can notify school admin and say, hey, look, I have this. you should know about this. All these kids are in a chat group and they're saying stuff. So it's just, that's what I would do in that situation. Again, that's something I do. My kid likes doing YouTube. Honestly, it's the weirdest thing. She likes watching adults open presents or open gifts. You guys see that? But these adults get paid to open a toy. And then the kid watches it. And I'm like, why are you watching somebody open a toy? And then talk about it and then dip it in water and like, ooh, it changes colors. She loves it. I'm like, whatever. So on YouTube, you can do parent settings. You can filter certain content that you don't want your kids seeing. So I would encourage you to go through and set your privacy settings on where you want it to be. You can also, and this is another big thing, is you can change your password to your Wi-Fi. So if your kid starts defying you and not listening, just shut the Wi-Fi off for them. And then change the password so they can't get into it. You know, there's nothing they're going to be able to do there, because I've had parents who are like, I don't know how to stop him from getting on the internet. I do. Pull your router out or block it so that he doesn't have access on any of his devices, and don't give him the password. And don't make it like his name and his birthday. That would probably be something bad. You might figure that out. You can block certain things too. I would encourage, that's another one. Anytime I have something where people are going back and forth, I always say block that person. Don't engage with them, block them. And then report. A lot of times, and I'm sure Estacio, who's been working a lot with school admin, knows that a lot of times parents will come and be like, hey, this has been going on for years and nobody's done anything. It's like, because we don't know about it. A lot of times we don't get told about it. So I would encourage you, even if it's a minor thing that you think might turn into a bigger thing, say something. Let school admin know, let me know. We'll take action on what we can do. Am I going too fast? Are you guys good? I don't want to fly through them. This is one of the big things when it comes to what I learned too from these kiddos, is the inappropriate and illegal behavior a lot of times. Again, they have no real concept of it. It's kind of weird. They use offensive language. I've seen kids that you talk to face, and you're like, man, this is like literally the nicest kid in the world. And then they morph into this other person online. And it's interesting. So kids do tend to turn into, and because they feel like there's zero accountability there a lot of times. So that person doesn't really know. They don't see the effect of what it is that they're saying to that person. You know, if I come up and say something to you, I'm going to see instantly the kind of effect it's going to have on you, and that most people would be like, oh, okay, he's upset. I want to back off, or you know what I mean? They don't see that online. So threats of violence, again, that's another big one that you have to report, have to say something. Underage drinking, hate speech, all that stuff. This is all stuff that I've seen online before. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, all that stuff.
Milton, can I jump in there?
Yep.
I think I agree with you. That was one of the most shocking things that came out of our panel with the high school students was how normal these behaviors were, how that morning they had seen someone die in a car crash online and they were just kind of, and these are good kids. They said, we don't even really call it sexting anymore, it's just texting. The kind of communication that our teenagers are having, they've just become, numb sounds a little bit strong, but I think the conversations about what's appropriate and not appropriate need to happen because they're not recognizing them as inappropriate. In meeting and talking with the police officers, these are not just things that we adults are saying, or they're happening to someone else. These are things happening to our students
all the time.
In our community, and it's pretty terrifying. I think it's easy to say like, oh, that's somebody else's kid, but you open the door to your kid's room at the wrong time and you find they're engaging in that inappropriate activity. So it's just not you, right, friend? No, yeah.
There's a lot.
Those are the two takeaways: how normal this behavior has come, and how important the relationship with the parent was to stemming these behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to get in. I think they talked later about the.
Great.
I mean, obviously, I was going to get into that, and I understand 100%. And it was. I hope you guys get to see it at some point. You'll see some of the things that these kiddos were saying. But yeah. Online privacy, this is another one that kids just have, honestly, even some adults, to be honest with you, have no perception of this. If you're taking a picture in your backyard, you might have a picture that you just sent out a picture of your house. It might have your mailbox in the background. It has your number, or your address number. Be aware of the pictures that you're posting because in those pictures can be revealing as to certain things. Just be aware of that. A lot of times kids don't think of it, and I said that to the 4 high school kids. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. They're like, well, anybody can find anybody these days. And you're right, yeah, people can find you, they can. But how much do you want them to know? I mean, do you want to know what every room inside of your house looks like? Do you want them to know the floor plan for where your kid sleeps and where you sleep and where your dog is? This is all stuff that literally, if I spend 5 seconds looking at somebody's social media, I could probably figure it out. You know what I mean? Because they post pictures of everything they do. And that's fine. I mean, I get it. Some people live online, but just be aware of it. I mean, you are inviting certain things, and just be aware of what your kids are posting. Like, I'm not telling you not to tell them to do it, but if you're at least sharing an account with them, you can look at it and be like, okay, that's fine. Well, I had this one. Hey, just be aware. This was in the background of this one, you know? A lot of times kids don't think beyond that. They're just thinking, oh, cool, I'm gonna take a picture of my skis. Oh, look at me, you know, type thing. It's just, be aware of it. That's all I'm saying. All right, move on. These are some of the risks, again, cyberbullying, online scams, identity theft, stalking, hacking, sextortion, which is one we're going to get into, which is what I'm going to talk a little bit more about, the normalcy of that. So again, this is huge, and this is what I've started to do. I've established rules with my daughter. And the big rule, and they all agreed, the 4 high school kids, I keep pointing over there because that's where we actually did it. The 4 high school kids all agreed that the parents should set a time limit. That those phones or that device should be off and in a basket or secured at a certain time every night. And at my house, 7:30, it goes off, and my daughter is not allowed to go anywhere online. Give her about 30 minutes to an hour to kind of let her brain cool down, and then she goes to bed. So I set it at 7:30 personally. What I try to do sometimes too is make her earn points by getting steps on like a watch or something. Then you can earn time to watch more hour or 20, 30 minutes more, you know, stuff like that. Cool ways to innovate and get your kid thinking about how to earn stuff. Learn about your reporting options. So again, ICAC, NetSmarts, and then the safety tip line there. I can't remember the name of it now, but I'm sure it'll come up again. But these are all resources for you to report stuff. Again, go through their privacy settings with them, help them set their passwords, tell them not to give their passwords to other people, don't log in through other people's devices, which the big one is the phone. They'll usually, if they don't have a phone, they'll log into their account through their friend's phone, which then their friend has what? Their friend has access now to their accounts and can mess with them. And it does happen, unfortunately. I'm glad the little one.
We have an insider.
So this one I don't see a lot anymore, I'll be honest with you. I know it's out there, and I know that Berwick PD, our 2 detectives just had a big investigation with ICAC. They sent a bunch of online inappropriate, there was a bunch of, not our detectives, we got sent a case about several people that had very inappropriate youth-aged pictures, I'll just put it that way, on their devices and stuff. So that does happen, this does happen, and I think, from my experience anyway, usually what happens with kids that seek the online relationships with people is because they're struggling in school to have friends, and a lot of times they'll pull away from those people and get more online, to deep dive into online to try to develop friendships and get relationships that way. And that could lead you down a really dark path. So it's just something to be aware of. There's always signs of this stuff, and you just as a parent got to be aware of what the signs are. I don't see this that much anymore, I'll be honest with you. There was one, I had one about during COVID actually. During COVID there was a little, I'm not going to say names, but it was a girl. She had a take-home iPad because everybody had take-home stuff at the time, and her mom had come in and she was doing like, it was one of those things, I don't even remember the name of the app. You might be able to help me with this, Stalkio. You log in, and it randomly connects you with somebody randomly to Facebook. What is it? Omegle? That doesn't sound like it. It might be something similar. So what it is, it's like FaceTime, but it's with random people. So the mom comes in, and this little girl is completely and dancing in front of this iPad that's propped up, and there's a guy's face on the other side of it. So you can imagine that poor mother, and she came in and saw that. It was she freaked out. But just be aware that this, again, big problem there, a little girl, device alone in her room. that's a problem, right? I always used to talk about when I was a kid growing up, the one computer we had in our house, because we all had one, it had that bing, ding, do, 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 do. And somebody pick up the phone and disconnect it. It's like, oh man. So our computer was in the middle of our living room. When my daughter is watching something, I usually have a door open and I can see her or I hear what she's doing. I'm always paying attention to what I can hear her. I'm not always watching over her shoulder. I don't want to feel like I'm oppressing her, but I want her to know that I am listening. And I will say, what are you listening to in there? Oh, nothing, Dad, it's just this. Okay, I can hear it. Be aware. Big problem there. Young kid, device in the home, in their house or in their room, no supervision. What are they going to do? They're going to mess with the camera. They're going to mess with all lines. Just be aware of that. Okay? It does happen. That was in this district. And she was, I think she was like a second or third grader. It was a pad she had to take home. A lot of times this stuff happens, again, on social media. They'll start grooming the kid by sending them messages, trying to entice them with gifts, stuff like that, different stuff. Most of the time, when it comes to solicitation for pictures and stuff, it's peer-peer. This was surprising to me, is that none of those kids, when I asked them about the pictures that they sent, if they were nude, they didn't care. They're like, yeah, it's just a picture. I'm like, you wouldn't care about other kids seeing you nude, picture of you? And they're, nope, doesn't bother me. And I'm like, I don't get that. I just don't get that. I couldn't imagine somebody in this school. I'm like, what if your parents are? Well, yeah, we want my parents to see it. I'm like, wow. I mean, it's the same thing. Anybody can see it. You have no control over it once it's gone. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's what I'm talking about. Like I think they're processing still. They're still developing at this age. So they're like, this is no big deal. But yeah, I don't want that. So just be aware of that. And the reason I say be aware of that is just so what we think, it's important to understand that what we think is inappropriate, so if you just say, hey, I want you to tell me if anything inappropriate happens. No, you got to be like almost plain Jane. Look, sending a new picture of yourself is inappropriate. Tell me if you do that. Or you received one. Tell me if you get one. You know, that's how point blank you have to be with this stuff, because they don't think, if you just leave it up to them to decide if it's inappropriate, you're probably not going to get many talks from them. So again, this is talking a little bit about offenders grooming kids. We're going to get into exploiting and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff is pretty common. You guys have any questions about this? I don't see a lot of this anymore. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm sure it happens. Maybe it's just not getting reported as much sometimes. But I don't feel like, I know you guys probably watch those shows too, where they How to Catch a Predator and all that stuff, where they kind of ambush these people that are like, oh, I thought you, yeah.
Are there certain platforms that parents might be concerned about? Like I go to like Roblox or, games that kids play with chat. Like where are children having contact with people that might be grooming them? Or is it like
I haven't had too many through Roblox. Roblox is, because Roblox doesn't allow you to ask certain things. Like if you say to it, hey, what's your address? It'll change that to like, hey, let's have fun or something. It won't allow you to say things like that. I found that out through my daughter, because I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they even flag the word love.
Yes, exactly. So Roblox is a pretty safe, but there is things that can happen even on Roblox, so just be aware. I would say the big one is Snapchat is huge, but usually a Snapchat, you kind of almost got to know somebody to be friends. Instagram, it seems like a lot of it starts with some type of online gaming a lot of times, because that's how they'll get a friend that they think is a friend, and then you learn that person's game tag, and then they accept them, and then it turns into, hey, here's my Snap, add me as a friend. And then it goes from there to other things. And that could happen. I don't think Roblox stops people from sending them their chat information, like this is my TikTok handle, or this is my Instagram handle. That's where you kind of snowball into something further, because that's where they can use unfiltered talk to that person and then start to kind of groom them, for lack of a better word. So that's what I see anyway. Again, I don't know if it's just not reported as much anymore, but I don't see a lot of this. Right? It's weird how things go in cycles. And right now, I'm getting a lot more online harassment, online bullying, and then pictures. That's the other thing. So, if you guys have questions about this, I don't want to just read the slides. Do you guys have any questions about some of these grooming stuff? You got a question? Oh. She pointed at your head.
No, I was just talking about the boyfriend-girlfriend thing. I've noticed the kids, at least I've heard a few Snapchat things, like they're taking pictures of their boyfriend and they break up and they're using those as like blackmail.
Yeah, that's sextortion. We're gonna get it. That's what sextortion is. And there's slides on it. I'm trying to go like a little at a time, but some of this stuff again is, so I'm gonna skip through the grooming part and I'm gonna get into that. All right, sexting, here you go. So this is sending nude pictures, obviously. That's what sexting is you're texting back and forth with somebody and you're sending them pictures. It could be through Snapchat. That's the number one thing that I see. But people can screenshot Snapchat. The kids know that. And it's supposed to notify, I just found this out the other day, that Snapchat is supposed to notify the person if somebody takes a screenshot, but you can upgrade your Snapchat to like Snapchat Gold and it doesn't notify the person that you took a screenshot.
Or if you go offline, you can go offline on your thing and then you take a picture and they never get notified.
There you go. And the kids are
Or
crafty
another
with this
device.
stuff. Yeah. But again, the important thing to realize is in their world, this is not a big deal. And I think if I like polled a bunch of junior high kids, they would probably tell you the same thing. And unfortunately, they're becoming more and more sexualized earlier in their lives. So it's happening a lot younger, which I'm petrified as my kid's 10 and he's going to be a 5th grader next year. And I'm like, man, it's like pump the brakes a little bit here. But this is it. I would say these numbers are probably higher, in my personal opinion, to what this says. But this says 19.3% of teens admitted to sexting, to sending something, and that's how many people admitted to receiving something. I'll be honest with you, I was a young boy, and if my friend had come to me with a picture that he had had of a girl, I'd be like, okay. And then, nobody's going to keep that stuff secret. Oh, hey, they're going to go show their friends. They're going to do that kind of stuff. Getting kids to understand that and think, well, this could be out there. They just don't care. It's weird. They just don't care. I don't know. That one part is where I kind of hit a roadblock with them. That they just didn't think. They just thought it was texting. And personally, I'm like, I couldn't imagine a nude picture of me being around there. I wouldn't want to go to school. I wouldn't want kids to look at me. And I think if it was used in a way that to blackmail them, I think they would change their tune. But those particular kiddos, I don't think anything like that had happened to them. The big, I'm seeing this with younger and younger kids, and it's because the number one culprit, in my personal opinion, is cell phones. It's easier, there's a camera on it, and you can send it instantly. Most of them don't do it on their school device because they can't even take them home now. And I'm not seeing too much with computers and stuff. It's almost all cell phones. All this stuff is being done with cell phones. Again, there is ways you can do stuff with cell phones. I'm not an expert at apps or stuff like that, but I know that iPhone, there is something you can go through a tech and an iPhone and they can explain, there's like a good system in place that will monitor pictures that they're taking, and it automatically will send that picture to your phone as well. So it's kind of like synced,
I was just at the AT&T store the other day and I was talking to the guy about possibly getting my 11-year-old, almost 12-year-old, a cell phone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is out there, that could be a little bit safer, besides just getting the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
And he said the iPhone SE.
Although it does go back and forth, most of the time it is the young girl that sends the photo. So I can, if you guys want to know, I can get into a lot of the laws and stuff with this kind of stuff, but I don't have my book here with me. It is something we deal with quite a bit. I don't want to give too much away with a young girl standing in here because I don't want her to think that. Well, I don't want her to know what the actual law is, so that sometimes when kids know, oh, okay, it's not breaking the law, I'll do it. So I try not to, but if you guys ever have questions for me, you can always contact me. I got school email, you can call me at the middle school too. I don't have any problem answering questions to go through some of this stuff, but a lot of it, you'd be surprised, a lot of it, there really is no criminal charge for it. Because most of the criminal stuff that's out there is more for adults with possession of kid stuff. Not too much peer-to-peer. You're not trying to jam up too many 13-year-olds because they got a picture of another 13-year-old. You're usually just trying to mitigate it by getting rid of the picture and making sure that it wasn't sent to other people. That's usually our primary goal with that kind of stuff. But you can you can get into some hot water with that kind of stuff. Yeah, so. But again, these are the reasons why the peer pressure is another big one, and almost like a sense of fitting in. They feel like they have to sometimes, experimenting relationships. And like I said, these kids are becoming a lot more sexualized at a younger age. The stuff that some of these kids know about that I'm like, holy moly, how do you even know that? You're a sixth grader. But anyway. This is actually a pretty decent one. This kind of talks, this story goes through, but again, this shows you some of the kid aspect to NetSmarts, where it is age appropriate stuff. But this is a little story. I'll let you watch this one. This one's actually pretty good.
You probably get lots of messages every day, but what if you got one like this? What would you do? Would you send a picture? No? Cool. That's an easy way to protect yourself. But what if you'd chosen differently? What if you send the picture? They'd never share it with anyone else, right? Do you want the picture shared with others? Sorry, you no longer have a choice. It's out of your hands now. Because sometimes people we trust break that trust. Maybe the person you sent the picture to shows it to some friends. Maybe they send it to a couple friends, who send it to a couple more friends, you get the idea. It spreads, and you never know who might see it. Your little brother, your mom, other people at school. That what happens to me ever. Even strangers can get a hold of your picture. You never really know where that picture will end up. How long it will be out there. Or what the consequences will be. Don't let others decide what happens to your image. Think before you share. Learn more at netsmarts.org. And hey, if your image is already out there, know that it's not your fault. For information about removing sexual pictures and videos from the internet, visit missingkids.org/gethelpnow.
Sometimes with stuff like this too, I've noticed that kids are very obviously, for obvious reasons, are embarrassed sometimes and don't tell people. They won't even tell their parents. Most of the time when I end up contacting a parent and say, I've got a picture of your kid, they're like, no. I'm like, yeah. Because they have no idea. And a lot of times, like I said, it's because the kid's a little embarrassed, or they just don't, like again, they don't think it's that big of a deal. And I don't know, that's kind of where there's a bit of a disconnect, but I think just having, again, that open dialogue with them to where they feel like they can come to you with stuff like that, that right now is a big thing we're dealing with. I've already had like 3 or 4 middle school, this, and high school, I know Johnny's dealt with it a lot. We usually try to stay on top of it, but you can only, and I always tell the parents this, I'll do what I can do, but I can't guarantee I'm gonna get rid of every picture. It's just not feasible. If that kid uploads it somewhere or sends it to somebody, it's out there. It's very hard to rein that in at that point. So just be aware of that. And these are some things that happen. There's so many stories online of kids harming themselves, kids getting to the point where they're thinking about doing serious things to themselves because of stuff like this. And in their mind, when they're doing it, they don't think down the road. And that's where we're more rational and we think, okay, this could have some long-term consequences. Maybe I shouldn't do this. But they're very much emotional. Oh, he loves me or she loves me. I know they'll never do anything like this. I'm going to send it. And then 2 weeks later, they break up and then, hey, now they got your photo. And this has happened quite a bit. Like I said, I've seen this quite a bit, unfortunately. So, addressing it, this is tough. I mean, this is a tough conversation to have. I'm definitely not looking forward to having this one with my daughter. But there's something that has to happen. I don't think if you don't have the conversation, then I don't think they're going to know your expectations when it comes to something like this. So talk to them about it, be honest with them about it, and be very forthright and almost very plain Jane, just explain it. A picture of your your upper half, your lower half. These are all inappropriate pictures. You shouldn't be sending that. And some kids that I've dealt with on this stuff are embarrassed, and other ones, like I said, don't really care. Give them examples, discuss sexual relationships, talk about all this stuff with them. And then there's that thing again too, cybertipline.org. That's a good one. I've heard multiple parents use that. And that's where the feds, FBI, all those guys will jump in. And that's where I said you can get in serious water, is because if you send it, that technically goes out into the internet and can cross state lines. It can end up in California, and that's where the FBI gets involved. And that could turn bad, because then you're talking about federal stuff. Sextortion, this is the other big one that we're seeing. Johnny had a case of this already this year. I know one of the kids that was supposed to sit on my panel had dealt with something like this. And there's a whole other element to this now, AI, where AI, they can generate a picture of someone that looks just like that person and make it a nude picture, and then use that. Hey, I've got a picture of you nude. You're like, that ain't me. I was like, well, it looks just like you, because now AI has made it look. And the kids know how to use this stuff, unfortunately, so just be aware of it, that they will then blackmail that person. And that could look many different ways. They could talk about sending them iTunes cards, it could be sending them Roblox points, whatever it may be. They'll use this as a way to get that kid to send them money or do something in order to not send a picture out. That's sextortion. That's what that is. You're extorting somebody on an image that they have, that they say they have of you. Now, if they actually have the image, again, these are all crimes. This is all a crime. There is crimes for sextortion. So if you ever have anything like this, I would encourage you to very much report that, because there is things that can be done for that. This is on the rise. This is happening a lot more, because kids are sending nude pictures of themselves to other people. That's why this is on the rise, probably. There's no video on it. I think it froze up. There's supposed to be more to that. This is some of the stuff that they would do, though. If you can see, they're sending me CVS, iTunes card, stuff like that. And this also happens, maybe not to the extent, but this could happen to adults as well. And it also is a crime for it to happen to an adult. So if somebody's extorting you for money, that's obviously a crime. So report that. A lot of times, again, adults are embarrassed, but don't be. I mean, we deal with this kind of stuff. I'd rather catch the person that's doing something like that than, let it go and report it. But a lot of times they're like, oh, I'll just send the money. So, do not comply with their demands. Absolutely 100%. Don't listen to them. Don't do it. Don't comply. That's my best advice for you. Don't go out and try to buy gift cards and send it to them, because then they're getting what they want. They're just going to go for more. Report it to the app. Again, you can report it to the app. That's a big one. You can report this person for doing stuff if they're doing it through an app. And don't delete the account. Make sure if you've got a copy of who that person is that's doing it to, like sometimes if it's coming from another account, a lot of times as police we can subpoena or get that information from that app. And then with that, a lot of times we'll have their IP address and all that kind of stuff too. So we can get that information, but we need a starting point, which would be like the name. There's some more resources again for you, missingkids.org, sexual exploitation, and then reporting cyber tips. Those are, again, some more resources for you. This is another one that we deal with quite a bit, is bullying and harassing online. This one's probably one of the more prevalent ones that me and Asakio deal with quite a bit at the middle school, unfortunately. A lot of times with what I'm seeing, most of the time, and you can chime in if you think of something, but most of the time it starts with like some type of chat. And it's always a group chat. Like there's always kids that will add other kids to like a Snap or something where they have a running chat going. And then somebody will get inappropriate and other people will start coming in. And then it turns into this, 10 pages worth of nonstop back and forth where one kid's being threatened because 4 or 5 others are teaming up on that one kid. This happens quite a bit. Do you guys have any questions about some of the cyberbullying, things that we do? I mean, a lot of times what I do at the school compared to what the school does is a little different because I'm a police officer in the school. The school's looking more to, the max that the school can do is suspend or expel a kid to where I can actually take legal action if the kid doesn't stop. So if you have something like this, and just, I think the other thing too is to understand as a parent what the actual bullying is. Bullying is repeated behavior that happens. Harassment is, can be a one-time thing, but in order for me to charge somebody or go after somebody for harassment, I have to have warned them. I have to have given them a verbal or written warning telling them that they have to stop their behavior. If I don't have that, it's hard for me to charge them for harassment. Now, if they're threatening, I'm gonna come kill you, slit your throat, something like that. That's obviously, that would be then criminal threatening, which takes it, I don't have to warn them for that. All I have to have is proof of the criminal threatening. Again, that's where keeping this stuff is very important. Along those lines too, a lot of times kids will find stuff with other kids. A kid will say, I'm thinking about hurting people at the school tomorrow or something like that. That's also, most kids are pretty good at picking that stuff up. From what I've noticed is that they're very apt to jump on other kids that do that kind of stuff or say that. And then it usually comes to admin or me at some point. But again, that's where having an app, the screen monitoring or something to where you can monitor what's being said on these things will help you. We've had a lot of those. We had a couple of years ago where a lot of guys were posting fight videos. They actually, I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember when they were kids? There were several kids fighting every day at their Berwick rec field. Like they were videoing it, like having like boxing matches basically at the Berwick rec field. They were videoing it, and then they had a couple fights at the backside of I want to say the football field or somewhere here. They were filming them and they're putting them online. It doesn't happen as much. Like I said, things go through cycles. Most of the bullying that I experience with this kind of stuff is chats. That's the big thing. They're just talking about the difference between cyberbullying and bullying. Cyberbullying, you can't get away from it, which is another reason why you should really focus on having set times, taking stuff away, and making sure your kid shuts off at some point. I mean, all of us are older with the exception of our little friend back there. I couldn't imagine growing up in an era where I couldn't disconnect from the people that school drama was school drama and I didn't have to hear it at home. These poor kids can't get away from it. It's there, it follows them. And a lot of times it's because, I'm just gonna be honest with you, because the parent allows them to then use their device at home further. If I know something's going on at home and there's drama, I can guarantee you my kid is not gonna be anywhere near a device that's gonna let her feed into that drama. I'm gonna let it simmer because what we always tell people is if you just give this a couple of days, these are middle school kids, they will move on. They have short-term memories. They're on to the next topic. But if we don't allow that cool down time or the time for, it to go away, it just gets worse. So I would definitely, go ahead.
Another follow-up, kind of like my other question, is there a place or tool that kids are using? Do they migrate from tool to tool? Where are they having those chats?
Snapchat's the big one that I see. Because Snap, they'll create a group Snap, and one kid created one called Noble Middle School Drama.
Yep.
And he posts all kinds of stuff like, this kid's dating this kid, and this kid's seeing this kid, and this kid called this kid fat today, or this kid called this, and that's what it was.
There was rumors about the bathrooms too.
And it was like, we kind of had an idea of who it was that was doing it. They weren't really harassing anybody. They were literally just talking about, two kids that were dating. They were just saying, hey, this kid's dating this kid now. So, but there was a couple times where it kind of got too far, and we would address it with the kids, because most of them don't change their screen name. It'll say like their name or something like that. So it's pretty easy to find them, and we usually jump on it pretty quickly and deal with it, but again, it is something to be aware of. That's the number one I see.
Yeah, well, and not to suggest that it can't just happen in one spot, right? Like if they're being supervised too heavily on Snapchat, they'll move to
They'll move to
Instagram
something else,
messaging or something else. I just was curious if there was a predominant tool.
Snap's the biggest one with
Yeah.
me, is what I've seen. Because I don't think you can create a group TikTok, can you? No? You can?
You do group chats.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about all these apps, so.
That's new with the last 6 months.
Okay. I know you can do it with Instagram too, yeah. And one of the things I learned from the high school kids too is that Instagram does not filter their content, so people can pretty much post whatever they want, to where TikTok actually does a little more filtering, I guess. They don't allow certain things to be posted if they're like hate speech or stuff like that. They'll right?
Violence.
Yeah, they'll kill. I asked because Estachio is my go-to when it comes to a lot of this stuff, because you know I'm 40-something years old and that man knows a lot more than me about technology and stuff, because I don't use it as much. I'm probably with most of you and don't use it very much, but I know enough to, you know, to be safe with my kid, and that's the big thing for me. Again, so if you can disconnect them, it stops it from growing faster, and then the faster you can remove that kid from that chat or get them off that device, the less like the drama will still continue, but they'll be pulled out of it, and they usually won't get dragged too much more into it. So.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like one thing I've noticed, especially like through the pandemic, like a lot of students have become like chronically online, but a lot of the times so are the adults. And like I'm sure we've all seen some pretty wild Facebook group posts and comments before. And so I mean I've just, you know, be aware of where they're at, like, and also, you know, it's not just the kids who are making these mistakes. I feel like a lot of the adults could, including myself, have a lot of room for growth. I'd say especially like with the fall, like no matter what your opinions are and whatnot, things are gonna get more heated online with like politics and whatnot, and that's gonna trickle down to the kids. So I just be aware of that, because it's gonna happen.
Yep. So these are some of the things that happen. I've seen most of these things, you know, you can tell the number one thing is most of the time your kid will start to rebel or be a little withdrawn if stuff's going on online. That's like, it's funny how when I've had days where I won't allow my kid to get on the pad just for a little bit, just to see, and her mood is completely different, to where if she's on it a little more, her mood she gets a little more agitated quicker, she gets a little more, and it's just amazing that if you can just get the kid to realize, hey, you know, just getting away from this for a little bit is actually really healthy for you. And what we do, my kid's not the most athletic kid in the world, but she likes dance. So we do dance with her. And I try to engage her and to keep her off that kind of stuff. And I'm not telling you I'm the parent of the year. I guarantee you. She'll tell you I'm a grumpy man. That's what she always tells people. Because I'm always like the disciplinarian. But she means the world to me, just like I'm sure your guys' kids, which is why you're here. And that's why I try to do my best to really keep an eye on her and see, okay, if something's bothering her, I'm going to pry and I'm going to really try to dig in and find out what it is. Because you as parents know when something's off with your child. You know, and a lot of times they get annoyed with you and they get sassy. You know, nothing's wrong, leave me alone. And then you fall, no, tell me what's wrong. What's going on? Again, see, these are some of the signs: loneliness, running away, substance abuse. I don't really see too much substance abuse, although that is happening a little more. Depression is the big one, low self-esteem, and then their grades and stuff will start to tank a little bit as well. They might withdraw. One of the biggest signs that I've seen, and anytime I've dealt with something like a grooming type situation, is that the kid will almost become obsessed with going to whatever that device is they're using to reach that person. So if it's Xbox or PlayStation, they can't wait to get on it. And if you deprive them of that for 5 seconds, you're gonna get like a blow up from them. And it could be the pad, it could be your cell phone. If they get really irritated when you take away their phone for a couple minutes, you probably should do a little pry in there. There might be something going on there. Just a heads up. That's another video, but I don't think we can play it. So this is for the kids again. This is a slide more for the kids, just saying there's a cyberbully, there's a victim, the bystander, and the upstander. Upstander is the one that usually does the reporting. These kids are getting better about reporting, I will say that, for the most part. I don't know if they're doing it because they want to get the other kid in trouble, but they do report it to us a lot of times. And some of the stuff you're just like, seriously, that's what you're, but you can't. You're just thinking in your mind, that's what you guys are fighting about? All right. Support your child. These are some things you can do. Consider the evidence, saving the evidence again. Blocking is huge. And again, I can't emphasize enough, give them that cool down period. Give them the time to get off that app, shut down that technology for a little while. And again, there's another tip line for you. I'm just reading something. All right. So again, monitoring it, having a very open dialogue. Again, the high school kids, what they really talked about was that their parents had set these standards and these guidelines for them, and it felt like they respected that and stuck to that when their parents actually did it. They talked about other kids that had kind of free reign, and they're like, yeah, you can tell that some kids are not monitored and some of the things they're saying and doing. So again, you guys are the parents that are sitting here, so I'm sure, like you said, you've already got apps on your phones and all that stuff to keep track of it, so you're doing your part. But set consequences, follow through too, follow through. That's a big one, follow through. And then, I'm not always the best example of this, but modeling good behavior online, like I play Call of Duty and stuff, sometimes I get a little annoyed. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not the best example. Yeah, and just, all right. Being an upstander basically is the one that reports. So you can have that conversation with your kid just to be really honest with them. Hey, if you see something going on, report it, because you're always better to say something and get it to the authority or get it to a school admin, somebody that's going to help deal with the situation. A lot of times kids are like, I don't want to be a snitch. If I had $100 for every time I heard a kid saying that, I would be a multi-billionaire at this point. I don't want to be a snitch. I don't want to be a snitch. I ain't snitching on my friend. It's like, you're not a snitch. You're 11 years old. But encourage them to talk to you about stuff and report stuff that they see is going on. Again, this talks about I've heard of Net Nanny. I've heard Net Nanny is actually pretty decent. That's what we have at school, right? Or that's NetRef. You had NetRef. You can NetRef somebody, which, that's at school. But do you guys know any really good at-home stuff besides what you've already used?
It's really behavioral. It's when my kids want to watch something repeatedly, I have them come and show me.
Yeah.
Watch it on my phone.
Good.
They sit next to me on the couch and we watch the thing that I find mind-numbing and stupid.
Yeah.
Because they know that we can watch it together instead of them going off and trying to find a way to watch whatever it is.
Yep. I actually, most of the time, I'll watch like the hockey game on my phone while my daughter can watch YouTube on she can talk into the remote and say, she like watching these kids play Roblox too, a certain group of kids. And I'm just like, oh my Lord. But I'm watching a hockey game. But again, that's like you're talking about. I can see what she's watching because I'm having to mind-numbingly watch whatever she's watching. But yeah, that's great. The big thing I would say too is just if you allow the kid to take the device into a place where nobody's monitoring it, bad things are going to happen. I don't care how good that kid is, bad things are going to happen. I can guarantee it. So just be aware of that. Just think about what you would have done, something like that at their age. Would you have been good the whole time? I can tell you I wouldn't have been good. So just be aware of that. I'm not saying I would have done any of the nude picture stuff, but God only knows what I don't even want to think about it. I mean, we had a phone attached to the wall that had a cord 5 miles long that you had to walk around with. And if your mom wanted to eavesdrop, she'd just pick up the other phone and listen to you. Right? So I didn't have to deal with that too much.
Some of those apps have location on them too, like Snapchat, where they can share where they are all the time. And so they'll
I'll ping their location, like drop a pin.
yes, so then they can look at the screen and see that all their friends are like in this area and they're not invited, or when they add people they don't know and they share their location and they just, that was the thing that I found most disturbing about Snapchat.
Yeah. Again, to me, I wouldn't want that, but these kids are growing up in a generation where they feel like they have to put everything online, so, yeah.
And they want people to know where they are.
They want people to know and what they're doing, so, yeah, I agree, 100%, so. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much it, so. I know I went a little long, but I mean, do you guys have any questions? I know it was a lot. I threw a lot at you. Do you feel like I didn't cover some things that you guys maybe want to? Again, I didn't get into a lot of the laws and stuff because I like to deal with each case as a situation as it comes. If you gotta go, you feel free. Don't feel like no, you're not disrupting me at all. Don't worry about it. I will say that in the state of Maine, this area on girls is not considered genitals. So in order for it to be possession of child pornography, it has to be
Really?
considered genitals, yes. So just be aware of that. And then also a lot of times these days when they're posting that, they blur out the face. And you have to be able to identify that it is a younger kid. And I've dealt with this many, many times that the kids kind of know if they're sending it to somebody their age. Now, where they get into a little bit of trouble is if they get it and then they send it to other people. That's when they start to kind of get into the dissemination of child pornography at that point. But again, the picture itself has to be considered child pornography. In order for that to happen, it can't be just this on girls. It has to be, other area. If you look it up, you can go home and type it into Google search. You can type in Maine law, what is considered child pornography, and it will tell you, and it reads pretty easily. So if you're looking to really know and understand what the law does, now again, most of the time I'm dealing with 11 and 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids. I'm trying not to ruin their lives. So our big thing is to really just educate them, get the picture as best we can, and get it deleted or removed. And I always freak kids out because I tell them, would you want me to see the picture? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, who do you think has to verify that it's a bad picture? And then they just look. I'm like, exactly. Do you think I want to see that? No. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't. I hate it. But it's part of my job. And do you think I want to do that? No. Yeah.
Do you give these talks at the school?
I have given talks to the kids at school. In fact, the health teacher, Ms. Basilis, has had me last quarter. I came in and did a talk. She remembers it. And I'm coming in
I think my daughter mentioned it too.
again next. But honestly, a lot of it, because there is distractions in the classroom, they think a lot of it's just fun and games.
Yeah.
They don't really grasp it.
Right.
And it just comes to with the age group. I try my best to educate. There is another NetSmarts thing for kids. I really try to educate them. When we deal with something, when kids are in trouble, that's when they seem like they really learn.
I'm gonna get in trouble for this, I better,
Yeah, exactly. And that's when they kind of grasp it and it absorbs it a little more.
Right.
Compared to if I'm just sitting there talking about it. But some of the girls do get creeped out when I'm like, hey, do you want me seeing the picture? You want your grandmother seeing the picture? Your grandfather? Your mom? Your dad? No. I'm like, well, that can happen. You don't know where that's going to go.
Like simple, just like dealt with it is simple, just like, oh, I like this outfit, and they're sending it to their friends. And I'm like, no, I didn't try to explain to her that, you can't be doing that, even to family members. You can't be sending that stuff to, because you never know once it's out there, it's out there.
Yep, I agree. And it's very hard to keep track of. Yeah. Do you guys have any other questions? I want to make sure I cover anything. But if you ever have questions about the actual laws when it comes to this stuff, and just remember, I am not out there trying to get your kids in trouble with this kind of stuff. I'm more interested in getting rid of it than anything. I'm like you guys. I couldn't imagine a picture of my daughter being out there. Would drive me crazy. And I would do everything. I would scorch the end of the earth to get her that picture. But you just try to do what you can do. And if I feel like it's a serial kid that's committing stuff, that's doing it with almost predatory type tendencies, then yes, I will take action on that kid. But that's rare, very rare. Most of the time it's just, oh, I did it because my boyfriend asked, or I did it because my girlfriend asked me for this. I didn't think anything was gonna happen to him. So.
Do you have any situations where like boyfriends are like, say that he's 18 or turns 18 and then he's having like a freshman or 8th grader, situation?
There is stuff out there. I know Johnny has dealt with a lot of it. I mean, a few years ago, one of the big things I remember when I first started back in like 08, there was a kid that created a website that had pictures of girls from the school, and all the guys would go on there and rate the girls from a 1 to 10. And it caused a lot of problems. But the problem was the guy loaded it to like a Chinese website, like it was like 4chan or something like that. And it was impossible for us to get rid of it. I tried 100 different ways to get the site taken down, and they wouldn't do it. Because they didn't answer to us, because their server was in China. So I couldn't do anything about it. So unfortunately those parents, and from what I've heard anyway, because some of the parents do still check, is it's still there. So, yeah. But getting a kid to understand that, with just taking a simple picture, that it could end up on something like that, where any creep in the world can look at that. Do you want that? And they get freaked out by that. It's like, well, that's the reality. You may be saying it's just your boyfriend, or your girlfriend, where they can work. So yes, that does happen. There is, again, the laws are very specific when it comes to ages. So if you start to get a big age dispersion, like an 18-year-old or like a 12 or 11-year-old, that's a problem. All right, so if that's going on, that's a problem.
I was just seeing, because we have 8th graders in the school where, I've heard stories on Facebook.
Yep.
Biggest thing is, they're dating an 8th grader, a senior, and then their next thing you know, they break up and there's pictures all over online. I've seen it all over Facebook, the chats. I just didn't know if you've seen it, in your
Like
mind.
most of the high school stuff Johnny deals with, I don't really see a lot of that, but I do hear about stuff. Not a lot, but it does come up. And I think, again, I don't know where, I'd have to look at the law book. I don't have it right in front of me, so I don't know the age dispersion. I think it's like 5 years. But again, the problem is was the person soliciting, were they asking for the photo, or did the kid just send the photo? That's a big difference too. That does make a difference if the kid willfully sends it, because technically that kid is doing something not good too. They're sending child pornography to another person.
Right, and then they get in legal trouble too.
Not saying that I'm trying to get them in trouble with it. It technically, if you really trace it back to the source, yeah, a lot of times that could be a bad thing. So, again, it would be a case-by-case basis, but if there's grooming, or if there's some type of, hey, if you give me this, I'll do that, or hey, send me this, please, if you really love me, you'll send me this, and kind of pressuring the kid to send, that's a different scenario. That's why each case has its own, it would have to be investigated, and we always would, which is why we'd rather know about it than not know about it, but yeah. It's a slippery slope. It's not a fun thing to deal with by any stretch, because you get angry parents on both sides are like, I want the picture gone, and I'm like, I can only do what I can do. So that's usually the number one thing. And I'll be honest with you, and I know this is gonna go in front of tons of people, I'm probably gonna get some hate mail, but a lot of times it's a very absent parent that it happens with, and just does, the proactive parent I very rarely have in my office, like, hey, this is going on. Sometimes it's just and I'm not saying it doesn't, like I said, you give a good kid home alone with a phone, I know it can happen. So, but a lot of times it just seems like hey, let the device be the babysitter for a little bit, and that's where you start to get into some of your problems too. So I'm not picking on anybody. I've been a victim of that myself. I've been annoyed, and I had a long day at work. I'm like, here, just go take your bath and go sit over there. Give me some time to myself type thing. I get it. We're parents, and we want time to ourselves too. So I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just as bad at it myself.
And I think as district, as a district community outreach committee, like our goal is to have these conversations younger, so that we're building habits that protect children and that help parents develop the conversation, the relationships and conversations, so they're not at the point in high school where these things, their child is getting into situations they are afraid to talk about, or embarrassed to talk about, or don't want to talk about. To cultivate that, to establish restrictions earlier. The better our filters have gotten at school, the less behavior like this we see at school. So, you helping to educate you about the tools that are available at home. So, just providing a safer environment. Technology is amazing. I'm like the biggest fan of technology, but the restrictions are so, the guidance and filtering and relationships are such an important pair with the tool.
That was the biggest takeaway I got from the kids, again, is that they all had a positive relationship with their parent or guardian, and they felt like they could report anything to them. And then, again, their thoughts of what was inappropriate compared to my thoughts of what was inappropriate were different. Those were some of the big key takeaways that I had from it, but I thought they were very honest, and I hope we're gonna post it eventually so you guys can see it too, but it was a great conversation, and these kids really opened up about things they're experiencing. And the big thing too is, I actually learned from it to not be so oppressive, because the inner cop in me comes out when my daughter, I feel like, is doing something and I get too aggressive, and then she's not gonna report stuff to me. She's gonna get mad and think I'm gonna get mad, and I don't want that. I want her to feel like she can always come to me with no matter what's going on, so. There's a fine line to walk. Get the mama bear come out of some of us. So, but thank you guys again. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.